The grand chamber of the galactic throne was filled with creatures from every corner of the known universe. They had come from distant stars and strange worlds, each one different from the next. Some had scales, others had feathers, and a few had bodies made of pure light. They all gathered on the crystal world of Vareth Prime because King Zavrock, the Eternal, had promised them something special. Zavrock was not like other kings. He was a serpent creature, 30 feet long, with scales that glowed in patterns of blue and green. He had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years, and in all that time, no one had ever challenged him and lived. His eyes were like yellow fire, and when he spoke, every creature in the room felt small. He rose from his throne made of bones and rare metals. The room fell silent. "Citizens of the Confederation," he said, his voice reaching into the minds of every creature through special translators. "I bring you news of our greatest victory. The human problem has been solved. They are extinct." A wave of sounds moved through the chamber. Some creatures made noises of approval. Others stayed quiet, not sure how to feel about what they had just heard. Their homeworld, the little blue planet they called Earth, is nothing but melted rock now. Their colonies have been cleaned away. Their ships float as broken pieces in the empty space between stars. Humanity is gone forever. A four-armed creature named Kethra raised one of her hands. She was an ambassador from the Veluxian people, and she was known for asking difficult questions. "Your Majesty, what about the stories of human survivors? The ones who say there are resistance fighters hiding in the outer regions of space?" Zavrock laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. "Stories told by fools and cowards. My purification fleet was very thorough. Admiral Voshtik himself confirmed that not a single human ship escaped. They are all dead." His advisor, a hunched little creature named Magistrate Orin, whispered something in his ear. Zavrock waved him away like he was swatting a fly. "Today begins a new age," the king continued. "An age without human chaos, without their strange ways, without their refusal to know their place. They thought they were special. They thought their fighting spirit would save them." He made a sound of disgust. "Spirit burns just like flesh." In the far back of the chamber, where the light from the great crystal lamps could not reach, something moved in the shadows. The guards standing nearby did not see it. They were trained to look for weapons and obvious threats. They were not trained to look for ghosts. The woman who called herself Baba Yaga had been many things before the war. Her mother had called her Catherine. Her military commanders had called her Lieutenant Cole. The enemies she had fought before the genocide had called her the Demon of Proxima because of what she had done to their forces. But after Earth burned, after she watched her home planet die through the window of a stolen ship, she had let go of all those old names. She became something new. Something from the old stories her grandmother used to tell her when she was a little girl in the mountains of West Virginia. Baba Yaga, the witch who lived in the forest. The one who ate children who came to her house without permission. The one who never forgave and never forgot. She had spent 2 years getting ready for this moment. 2 years of hunting for information. 2 years of finding other survivors and building a secret network. There were more humans alive than Zavrock knew. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. They lived in asteroid fields and abandoned space stations, hiding in the dark places between the stars, where no one thought to look. Her people had called her crazy when she first told them her plan. She wanted to walk right into the throne room of the creature who had killed their entire species. She wanted to show him that humanity still lived. "What good will that do?" her second-in-command had asked. His name was Danny Vance, and he was a former Marine with scars all over his face from battles he had barely survived. "We cannot kill him. We do not have enough soldiers or weapons." "We do not need to kill him," Catherine had answered. "We need to scare him. He thinks we are all dead. He thinks he won. When he sees me standing in front of his throne, when he understands that we survived, that fear will spread through the whole galaxy. And fear is a weapon sharper than any knife." Now she stood in the shadows of the grand chamber, listening to Zavrock talk about his great victory, and she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. She looked at the small device on her wrist. The machine that made her invisible would only work for 3 more minutes before it needed to rest. That was enough time for what she needed to do. Catherine Cole stepped out of the darkness and started walking toward the throne. The first one to see her was a creature with hundreds of tiny eyes. He noticed the air shimmering strangely, and then the shimmer became a shape, and the shape became a woman, and the creature found himself unable to move or speak. She was not tall. She was not big or strong-looking. She wore simple dark clothes that might have been a uniform once, but were now old and patched in many places. Her hair was gray and cut short. Her face showed the lines of many hard years. But her eyes, the creature would remember those eyes until the day he died. They were the color of old iron, and something in them made every part of his body want to run away as fast as possible. She walked past him without looking at him. Her boots made soft sounds on the marble floor. By the time she had taken 10 steps, people were starting to notice. By 20 steps, creatures were pushing each other to get away from her path. By 30 steps, the guards had finally seen her. An alarm started screaming throughout the chamber. Catherine did not walk faster. She did not walk slower. She just kept moving forward at the same calm pace, as if she was taking a peaceful walk through a park, as if there was no danger at all. A huge guard covered in hard-shell armor stepped in front of her. He pointed his plasma weapon at her chest. "Stop," he commanded. "Tell us who you are right now." Catherine stopped. She looked at the guard for a long moment. Her face showed nothing. "My name does not matter," she said. Her voice was quiet, but somehow it cut through all the noise and chaos like a sharp blade. Everyone in the chamber could hear her clearly. "But since your king seems to have forgotten my people, let me remind him." She reached into her jacket. Every guard pointed their weapons at her. She pulled out a small flag, folded carefully into a triangle, and held it up so everyone could see. The stars and stripes of the United States of America. It was burned at the edges and stained with blood, but it was still whole. "I am humanity," she said, "and we are not extinct." On his throne, King Zavrak had stopped moving completely. The glowing patterns on his scales had frozen in place. Among his species, this was a sign of great fear. "This cannot be real," he hissed. "This is a trick. A fake image. Some kind of lie." Catherine started walking again. The guards moved away from her like water moving away from a boat. None of them wanted to be the first one to shoot. "No trick, Your Majesty," she said. "I am as real as the blood you spilled, as real as the cities you burned, as real as the children you murdered while they slept in their beds. Kill her." Zavrak screamed. His voice was high and wild with panic. "Kill her now." The guards did not move. They were trained warriors who had fought in 100 battles, but something about this woman made them afraid to act. Maybe it was the complete lack of fear in her eyes. Maybe it was the way she moved, like a hunter who had already decided that everyone in the room was her prey. Maybe it was something older and deeper. Some animal instinct that could feel death walking among them. One guard, either braver or more stupid than the others, finally pulled his trigger. A bolt of hot plasma flew toward Catherine's head. She tilted her body slightly to the left. The bolt passed by her face close enough to burn some of her hair. She did not even blink. "You missed," she said, and kept walking. The guard fired again and again. Each time, Catherine moved just enough to avoid being hit. Her movements were small and smooth, as if she could see the shots coming before they were fired. "That is enough." The voice came from the main entrance of the chamber. More humans were coming in now. There were 12 of them, all carrying weapons, all moving with the same dangerous grace as their leader. Danny Vance walked at the front of them, his scarred face showing a hard smile. "We have taken control of the station's defense systems," Danny announced loudly. "Any ship that tries to leave orbit will be destroyed. Any soldiers that try to reach this chamber will find the hallways very hard to get through." He held up a small device with a button on it. "We have also placed bombs at several important points in the structure, so I suggest everyone stay calm." Catherine had reached the bottom of the steps that led up to the throne. She looked up at Zavrak, at the creature who had ordered the death of her entire species. and she felt nothing but cold purpose. "You wanted to see humanity extinct," she said. "Let me show you what that looks like." The grand chamber had become silent. Even the alarms had stopped. 1,000 representatives from 1,000 different species watched as a single human woman stood before the throne of the most powerful being in the galaxy. Zavrak's advisor, Magistrate Orin, was working frantically at a communication machine, trying to call for help. His clawed fingers moved quickly over the glowing controls, but every channel was dead. "The communication system has been disabled," Danny called out. "Along with the security network, the emergency teleport system, and the automatic defense guns. We have been planning this for a very long time." "This is insanity," Zavrak said. His voice had lost some of its power. "You cannot possibly escape. Even if you kill me, the Confederation will hunt you down. Every human who still lives will be found and destroyed." Catherine smiled. It was the first time her expression had changed since she entered the chamber. Somehow that made it even more frightening. "You do not understand," she said. "We did not come here to escape. We came here to send a message." She took a small device from her pocket and pressed a button. Holographic screens appeared all throughout the chamber. Each one showed the same thing: human faces. Dozens of them, hundreds. They were broadcasting from hidden locations all across the galaxy. "Hello, Your Majesty," said a young woman with red hair and angry eyes. "This is Beth Morrison from the Resistance Group on Arcturus Station. We are alive." "This is Sam Porter, sending a message from the Kepler asteroid field. We are alive." "This is Maria Santos from the underground fighters on Vega Prime. We are alive." One by one, the voices joined together. Each one was a defiant statement of survival. The representatives in the chamber looked at each other with new worry in their eyes. These were not the actions of a few scattered survivors. This was an organized resistance, spread across the galaxy, hidden in places no one had thought to look. "You thought you killed us all," Catherine said, her voice cutting through the chorus of human voices. "You thought you won. But you made a mistake, Zavrak. You've studied our weapons. You studied our technology. You've studied our military tactics. You never bothered to study our history." She took another step closer to the throne. The guards moved to stop her, but Zavrak waved them back. Despite his fear, or maybe because of it, he wanted to hear what she would say. "Humans have been fighting against extinction since before we left our caves," Catherine continued. "We survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years. We survived diseases that killed millions of us. We survived wars that destroyed entire nations. We survived rulers who tried to wipe us from existence. And every single time we came back. Not because we are stronger than our enemies. Not because we are smarter. Not because we have more numbers. We came back because we refused to stay dead." "Pretty speeches," Everett tried to sneer, but his voice shook. "You are still outnumbered. Still weaker. Still going to die." "Maybe," Catherine admitted. "But here's the thing about death, Your Majesty. We have faced it before. We have looked extinction in the eye, and we have spit in its face. That is what you never understood about us. We are not afraid of dying. We are afraid of dying without a fight." She turned to speak to everyone in the chamber, her iron eyes moving across the faces of the assembled representatives. "Some of your species helped kill us. Others watched and did nothing. A few tried to help us, and we remember them with gratitude." She paused to let her words sink in. "But for those who took part in our destruction, who enjoyed watching us burn, know this. Baba Yaga remembers your names, and she is very, very patient." Ambassador Kethra of the Veluxians finally found her voice. "What do you want?" she demanded. "What is the point of all this?" Catherine looked at her, and for a moment, something like respect appeared in her eyes. The Veluxians had stayed neutral during the genocide. They had not helped humanity, but they had not joined in killing them either. "I want the galaxy to know the truth," Catherine said. "Humanity is not extinct. We are hurt, yes. We are scattered and few. But we are alive, and we are watching." Catherine continued speaking to the chamber full of aliens who had watched her species burn. Her voice was steady and cold, like ice that would never melt. Every species that made profit from our genocide, every official who signed orders for our death, every soldier who pulled the trigger on our civilians, we know who you are. We have your names. We have your faces. We know where you live and where you work and where your families sleep at night. And we will find you. Yeah, this is terrorism, Magistrate Orange shouted, his voice high with fear. This is barbaric behavior. No, Catherine replied calmly. Terrorism is burning a planet of 8 billion people because you find them annoying. What we are doing is called justice, or maybe revenge. The line between those two things has always been thin. She turned back to face Zavrak. The king had not moved from his throne, but his scales had turned a sickly gray color, and his glowing patterns were flickering like a broken light.
As for you,
Your Majesty, I have brought you a gift. She reached into her jacket again. Every weapon in the room pointed at her. She pulled out a small metal tube about the size of her finger and tossed it onto the steps below the throne. This is a data crystal, she explained. It contains the names and locations of every member of your purification fleet who helped destroy Earth. Admirals, captains, common soldiers. All of them. We have been tracking them for 2 years, waiting for this moment. Zavrak stared at the crystal like it was a poisonous snake. Over the next month, those people will begin to disappear. One by one, quietly, without warning, some will die. Others will simply vanish and never be seen again. By the time it is over, every being who had a hand in our genocide will have paid the price. You do not have the resources for such an operation, Zavrak said. But his voice had become rough and weak. You are lying. Catherine smiled again, and this time there was real amusement in it. Am I lying? You thought you had killed every single human. You thought there was no way a human could ever enter your throne room. And yet here I am, standing in front of you, having just shown the entire galaxy that humanity still lives. She opened her arms wide. How many of our agents do you think are already in position? How many ships and stations and planets have we already entered secretly? You will never know, Zavrak. That is the point. Every shadow, every dark corner, every strange noise in the night, you will wonder if Baba Yaga is coming for you. The chamber exploded into chaos. Representatives were yelling, demanding answers, demanding protection. Guards were trying to restore order while also watching for more human attackers. Magistrate Orin had given up on calling for help and was now trying to run away from the chamber, only to find every door blocked by armed humans. Through all of this, Catherine stood motionless at the base of the throne, watching Zavrak with those cold iron eyes. You are dead, the king hissed. Even if everything you say is true, even if you escape from this room, I will use every resource of the Confederation to hunt you down. I am counting on that, Catherine replied. Every ship you send looking for us is a ship that is not keeping order in your territories. Every bit of money you spend on the hunt is money you are not spending on keeping your allies happy. And every day that passes without you catching me, your legend dies a little more and ours grows stronger. She took a step back from the throne. Humans have a saying, Your Majesty. It comes from a very old story about a woman who lives in the forest, in a house that walks around on chicken legs. Children fear her because she eats those who come to her house without being invited. But wise travelers know that if you approach her with respect, if you prove yourself worthy, she will give you wisdom and help. Catherine's smile returned, colder than before. I am not that kind of Baba Yaga. I am the other kind. The one who hunts. The one who never forgets a wrong done to her. The one who waits in the darkness until her enemies think they are safe, and then strikes without mercy. She turned to Danny, who was watching the chaos with obvious satisfaction. Time to leave, she said. Danny nodded and spoke into his communicator. All teams, start exit plan. Throughout the chamber, the human fighters began to move. They did not run. They did not panic. They simply withdrew, melting back into the shadows they had come from, disappearing as completely as if they had never been there at all. This is not over. Zavrak screamed, I will find you. I will burn every rock in the galaxy until not a single human is left. Catherine paused at the entrance to the chamber. She looked back over her shoulder. and for just a moment, she looked tired, old, like a woman who had seen too much and done too many terrible things. The last time someone tried to wipe us out, they killed 6 million of our people, she said quietly. We called it the Holocaust, and we promised ourselves it would never happen again. You killed 8 billion. Do you really think we are going to forget that? Do you think there is anywhere in this galaxy where you can hide from that kind of debt? She stepped through the door and disappeared into the corridor beyond in the hours that followed. The Galactic Confederation fell into fear and confusion. Reports came in from all across the galaxy. Human agents had attacked dozens of targets at the same time. Military bases, government buildings, even the private homes of officials who had helped with the genocide. None of the attacks caused much real damage. They did not need to. Their purpose was to send a message. Humanity was alive. Humanity was everywhere, and humanity was very, very angry. Ambassador Kethra spent most of that night in her private rooms, looking through the information the human woman had left behind. The list of names was long, detailed, and frighteningly accurate. The Veluxians had spy again. Seas that were considered among the best in the galaxy, and even they had not gathered information this complete. 2 years. The humans had spent 2 years hiding, gathering information, building networks, preparing for this moment. While Zavrak had been celebrating his victory, they had been sharpening their knives in the dark. Kethra found herself impressed against her will, and more than a little scared. She opened a secret communication channel to the Veluxian homeworld. Her leaders needed to know about this, and perhaps, she thought, it was time to think again about their relationship with the Confederation. After all, humans had made one thing very clear. They remembered their friends, and they remembered their enemies even better. The story of the human woman who walked into the galaxy. King's throne room spread across the stars like fire through dry grass. It grew bigger with each telling. People added details and made things up until it was more legend than history. Some said she had killed 100 guards with her bare hands. Others claimed she had placed a curse on Zavrak that was slowly driving him insane. A few insisted that she was not really human at all, but something older and darker. A spirit of revenge that had taken physical form. The truth was simpler, and in its own way, more impressive. She was just a woman. A tired, sad, an angry woman who had lost everything and decided that giving up was not something she could do. But in the end, the truth did not matter. What mattered was what people believed. And they believed in Baba Yaga. 3 weeks after the incident at Varith Prime, Admiral Voshtik was found dead in his private quarters. He was the one who had personally commanded the attack on Earth. He was the one who had given the order to keep firing until nothing was left but melted rock and ash. His body was discovered by his servants in the morning. There was no sign of how anyone had gotten in or out. The only clue was a small human flag pinned to his chest. 2 days later, Captain Krevener disappeared from his ship. He had been in charge of destroying the human colonies on Mars. One moment he was in his cabin, the next moment he was gone. All that remained was his empty uniform lying on the floor, and a small note that said, "Baba Yaga says hello." The disappearances continued. One by one, the officers who had carried out the genocide began to vanish. Some were found dead. Others simply ceased to exist, leaving behind nothing but fear and confusion. The Confederation tried to keep it secret at first. They did not want anyone to know that humans were successfully hunting down their best officers. But secrets are hard to keep in a galaxy full of different species with different loyalties. Soon everyone knew. The humans were keeping their promise, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop them. King Zavrak became a prisoner in his own palace. He stopped appearing in public. He dismissed most of his staff because he could not trust anyone who might be a human agent in disguise. His food was tested by 3 different tasters before he would eat it. His security guards were increased again and again. None of it helped him sleep at night. Whenever he closed his eyes, he saw her face. Those iron eyes looking at him without fear. That cold smile that promised pain. He had nightmares about her walking through the walls of his bedroom, coming for him in the darkness, He was the most powerful being in the galaxy, and he was afraid of a ghost. The political situation began to change as well. Species that had been loyal members of the Confederation started to quietly distance themselves. They did not want to be caught in the middle of what was clearly becoming a long and bloody conflict. Trade routes that had been safe for centuries suddenly became dangerous. Ships and stations connected to the genocide found themselves attacked by what officials called pirates, but everyone knew were really humans. The Veluxians were the first major power to formally leave the Confederation. Their official reason was economic concerns, but everyone knew the truth. They were afraid of what might happen if they stayed connected to Zavrek. Other species followed. The Confederation that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years was beginning to fall apart. Catherine Cole watched all of this from her hidden command center on a converted cargo ship. Screens around her showed information from across the galaxy. Troop movements, supply routes, potential targets. Reports from agents embedded in 100 different places. The Kravathi have announced they are reconsidering their alliance with the Confederation. Danny reported, reading from his datapad. That makes 5 major species that have either left or are thinking about leaving. Good, Catherine said. The more isolated Zavrek becomes, the weaker he gets. Some of the smaller species are getting nervous, though. They are worried about what happens if the Confederation actually falls apart. Zavrek is terrible, but at least under his rule, things were stable. Catherine nodded slowly. This was the part that kept her awake at night. Revenge felt good, but it was not a plan. Sooner or later, the surviving humans would have to decide what they actually wanted to build. There is something else, Danny said. He seemed hesitant. We have been getting messages from some of the species that Zavrek has been keeping under his control. They want to know if we would be willing to help them. To teach them how to fight back against him? We are not an army. We are barely even a resistance. I know, but maybe that is not what matters. Danny put down his datapad and looked at her directly. When you walked into that throne room, you showed the galaxy that even the most powerful tyrant can be challenged. You showed them that one person standing up can make a difference. That is worth more than any army. Catherine was quiet for a long time. Through the window of the ship, she could see a distant cloud of colored gas floating in space, its colors shifting and changing like slow fire. My grandmother used to tell me stories about Baba Yaga when I was little, she finally said. In some of the stories, she is a monster who eats children. But in other stories, she is a teacher, a guide who helps those who are brave enough to come to her and ask for wisdom. She turned to face Danny. Maybe it is time to be that other kind of Baba Yaga. What does that mean in practical terms? It means we stop just hiding and start building something real. Not just a resistance, but a network. A way for species that have been crushed under Zavrak's control to find each other. To share resources. To learn how to stand up for themselves. She smiled, and for the first time in years, the smile actually reached her eyes. The Confederation took everything from us. Our home, our families, our future. But they could not take what we know. And what we know is how to survive against impossible odds. Danny thought about this for a moment, then slowly nodded. I will start contacting people. See who might be interested. Good. And Danny, tell them the truth about who we are. We are not heroes. We are not saviors coming to rescue them. We are just people who refuse to die quietly. If they can accept that, they are welcome to join us. Danny smiled, the scars on his face twisting with the expression. I think that might be exactly what they need to hear. 6 months had passed since Catherine Cole walked into the throne room of King Zavrek. In that time, the galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The Confederation was falling apart. 8 major species had now withdrawn their support. Trade agreements that had lasted for centuries were being canceled. Military alliances were breaking down. The empire that Zavrek had built over 3,000 years was crumbling like a sandcastle in the tide, and at the center of it all was a legend, a story, a name whispered in dark corners and secret meetings across 1,000 worlds. Baba Yaga. The humans had done exactly what Catherine promised they would do. Every officer who had participated in the genocide was being hunted down. Some were killed. Others simply vanished, never to be seen again. The methods were never the same twice. Sometimes the target would be found in a locked room with no sign of how anyone had gotten in. Sometimes they would disappear in the middle of a crowd, surrounded by witnesses who saw nothing. Sometimes they would receive a message, just 3 words, and then be dead within a day. Baba Yaga remembers. The fear spread faster than any army could have. Soldiers who had enthusiastically participated in burning Earth now refused to sleep alone. Officers who had bragged about how many humans they had killed now jumped at shadows. The most powerful military force in the galaxy was being destroyed not by weapons, but by terror. Catherine had built something new from the ashes of her species. What started as a small group of survivors had grown into a network that stretched across the galaxy. Humans lived among dozens of different species now, teaching them what they had learned about resistance and survival. Former slaves were learning how to fight. Oppressed populations were learning how to organize. The seeds of rebellion were being planted everywhere. She stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out at the stars. Danny stood beside her, as he always did these days. "We received a message from the Veluxian ambassador," he said. "Kethra. She wants to meet with you personally." "What does she want?" "She says the Veluxians want to formally recognize humanity as a sovereign people. They want to offer us territory in their space. A new homeworld, if we want it." Catherine did not respond right away. A new homeworld. The words felt strange, like a language she had forgotten how to speak. For so long, she had thought only about revenge and survival. The idea of actually building a future seemed almost impossible. "There are also messages from 6 other species," Danny continued. "They all want to talk. Some of them want alliances. Others want us to help them break free from the Confederation. What do you think we should do?" Danny considered the question carefully. "I think we have a choice to make. We can keep doing what we have been doing. Keep hunting. Keep killing. Eventually, we will have our revenge on everyone who hurt us. And then what? We will be a species defined by hatred. That is all we will have left." Paused. "Or we can be something else. We can take what we have learned and use it to help others. We can build something new, not just for humans, but for everyone who has been crushed under Zavrak's rule." "That sounds very noble," Catherine said quietly, "but I am not sure I know how to stop hating them." "Maybe you do not have to stop. Maybe you just have to choose what you do with it." Danny put a hand on her shoulder. "We have proven that humanity cannot be destroyed. Now we have to prove that we are worth saving." Catherine closed her eyes. She thought about Earth, about the blue skies and green forests that she would never see again. She thought about her grandmother, who had told her stories about monsters and witches and brave children who outsmarted them. She thought about all the people she had lost and all the terrible things she had done since. And she thought about the future, about what it might mean to build instead of destroy. "Set a course for Veluxian space," she finally said. "Let us see what Ambassador Kethra has to say." 3 days later, Catherine Cole sat across a table from the four-armed ambassador who had asked the first questions in Zavrak's throne room so many months ago. "You asked me once what I wanted," Catherine said. "I told you I wanted the galaxy to know that humanity was not extinct. That goal has been achieved. Now you are asking what I want next." "Yes," Kethra said. "Because what you want will determine whether you become heroes or monsters. Right now, you could go either way." Catherine nodded. It was a fair point. "I want my people to have a home again," she said slowly, working through the thoughts as she spoke. "I want the species that helped destroy us to face justice for what they did. But I also want something more than that. I want to build a galaxy where what happened to us can never happen to anyone else. Where no single tyrant can decide that an entire species deserves to die. That is a very large goal. Yes, and I do not know if it is possible. But I know that if we do not try, then all of this will have been for nothing. All the death and suffering will just create more death and suffering forever. Someone has to break the cycle." Kethra studied her for a long moment. "The Veluxians have decided to offer you a world in our space. It is a small planet but it has clean air and water and land where things can grow. You can make it whatever you want it to be, and in return, we want your help. The Confederation is dying, but something will have to take its place. We believe that humans have something to teach the rest of us about survival and resistance. We want to learn from you." Catherine thought about this offer. A home. A future. A chance to be more than just ghosts haunting the ones who had wronged them. "I need to talk to my people," she said finally. "This is not a decision I can make alone, of course. Take whatever time you need." 1 year later, the first human colony ship landed on a world that they named New Virginia. In honor of the mountains where Catherine Cole had grown up, it was a small beginning, just a few thousand humans starting over on a strange world far from where they had been born. But it was a beginning. The legend of Baba Yaga did not die. It grew and changed, as legends do. In some versions, she was still a terrifying figure of vengeance, still hunting those who had escaped justice. In others, she was a teacher and protector. Helping the weak stand against the strong, both versions were true in their way. Catherine Cole was both things. She was a woman who had looked at the death of her entire world and refused to let it be the end of the story. And in the end, that was what humanity had always been best at. Looking at impossible odds at certain death, at the end of everything they knew and loved, is finding a way to keep going anyway. Baba Yaga was watching. She would always be watching. And the galaxy would never forget what happened when you tried to make humanity extinct. Some species could be conquered. Some could be controlled. Some could even be destroyed. But humans just got angry. And an angry human with nothing left to lose was the most dangerous thing in the universe. The galaxy was beginning to understand that now. And they would never make the same mistake again.